All right, class. First off, as always, good day. I'm glad you're here. Today, we are going to continue on with the Reconstruction. Now, this lesson specifically, we're going to be looking at what's happening with the White House and Congress and things like that, because it's a real hornet's nest of what happens in this situation. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the objective. Today, we're going to analyze the bills that President Johnson vetoed. Now, I know the word vetoed was in your vocab, so if you guys weren't able to get to the vocab yet, you're going to learn today what a veto is. And if you did um, already have the vocab and you did do the word, you already one step ahead, which is awesome. We're going to examine whether Congress overstepped their authority slash power. You're going to see today what kind of rules they set up for President Johnson and things like that. And lastly, we're going to create an argument on whether President Johnson deserved his impeachment. We're going to be looking at that, yes, because he is the first president to be impeached. And we're going to get into that. What does it mean? Things like that when a president is impeached. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the warm up, which is again an LPAC question. All right, so again, think about an important event in your life. Now, I don't mean like an important event like, oh, I got the shoes I've always wanted when I was a kid. No, 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 something big, something important, something impactful that happened to you in your life. All right. So what happened during that event and how did it change you? Okay. Um, so like again, think of when you were between when you were a kid till now. Okay, I mean, it could have happened last week for crying out loud, but how did this event change you? Did it change your view of life, your perspective of things? Okay, so um, you get about 5 minutes. Okay, so take a minute, think about it. What has really changed you, an event, and then um, put the timer on for 5 minutes and write about it. Put as much detail as you can explaining why this event was so important and how it changed you specifically. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the video because we're moving on. And don't forget to put the timer 5 minutes. Okay, we're moving on in three, two, one. All right, so February 19th, 1866, the Friedman Bureau bill increases their power. Now, basically, what this does, it gives them military trials for anyone found depriving African Americans of their civil rights. So let's say a sheriff, is making sure that these African Americans are like living in squalor, that they can't go certain places. Um, like if they just beat them up for no reason, things like that. There's no justification for arresting them. They could be seen as, hey, you're depriving this person of their civil rights. You're supposed to have a reason for arresting somebody. Um, if you beat on some citizen, you know, chances are there going to be repercussions for that. So that's what they did. They made sure that African Americans were treated right, as American citizens are supposed to be treated. Johnson vetoes this bill. Okay, the bill comes to him, and he says, "No, I don't like it." He sends it back to Congress. Now, here's the thing with vetoes. Just because the president says, "I don't like it," and sends it back to Congress, it doesn't mean that the bill or the law is dead. What it means is that Congress, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, both have to approve it by two-thirds majority. If they get the two-thirds majority, that basically means this is what the American people want. Ergo, this is going to be the law. And that's what happens. Once Congress gets that two-thirds, the president cannot veto it again. Okay, so once the president uses the veto and the Congress gets the two-thirds, that's it. Now, here's the thing. This is a little gray area on the Constitution and the law. if the president vetoes the bill and it goes back, and let's say Congress decides, let's say the Senate, they decide to change one sentence, even one word, then it's basically considered a new law uh, in the eyes of the Constitution, and the president gets another veto. But if they don't change anything at all, it's still the same bill. Okay, so as long as they don't change anything and they get it passed by 2/3, the president cannot veto it again, and that's what happens. They get a 2/3 override Johnson, the bill becomes law. The first Reconstruction Act basically divides the South into 5 military districts. A Union general is placed in charge of each district to basically maintain the peace and protect the rights of people and their property. Okay. Now, like I told my other classes in the past, this doesn't necessarily mean just African Americans. This means everybody. Because you have to remember, there are some white people in the South who they have no problem with um, being neighbors to African Americans. They have no problem with them trying to get a living, working, at a place and trying to provide for their families. They see no problem with it. But there are a lot of people who see them as a problem, you know. And if you're not, they have the mentality: if you're not with us, you're against us. If you don't believe, you're a white person, you don't believe what we believe, you're against us. And that's where this comes into hand. So when they say protect the rights of persons and property, and you see it doesn't say just African Americans, it means everybody. Okay. The first Reconstruction Act comes to Johnson, and he vetoes it again. And again, Congress overrides him. They get the 2/3 majority. So now he's like, "Ugh, every time you guys give me something, you guys override my veto." And they're like, "Well, every time we give you something, you veto it. So we're going to override you. So just pass it." But Johnson. Mm-mm. So this is what you're going to do for this question. Um, you need to take out your phone. Okay. Yes, you're going to need your phone. Go to Google and find 3 bills that President Andrew Johnson, vetoed. All right. Now, if you see something that says Lyndon Baines Johnson, no, that's another president, like 100 years in the future. No, not him. Andrew Johnson. Find just 3 bills that we haven't mentioned yet that he vetoed. Okay. Now I know that some of you guys do not have a phone, you don't have a computer access, things like that. If you're in the classroom, you can ask, you know, um, if you did research it, you did look it up on Google, be sure to share, okay? Because again, some people don't have a phone, they won't be able to look this up, so help them out, okay? Find the 3 bills um, and write them down. Okay, so we're going to be moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right, so it got to the point where Congress basically did not trust Andrew Johnson. They were like, dude, every time we put a law out to try to help uh, African Americans or give the Freedmen Bureau more power or try to make things right or try to fix this Reconstruction thing, you just say no to everything we say. So they're like, we can't trust you. So what they did is they did certain things. Like one, they passed the Army Appropriations Act, which basically meant that Johnson has to transmit his orders to the military first to the commanding generals in Washington. Here's why this is unique, because the president is the commander in chief. He is the top person in our military. Everyone answers to him. He's the top. Okay. Now they're saying, no, when you give an order, you have to talk to the people below you, and then they will say basically, is that a just order? Is that okay? Do they agree with it? And if so, then they relinquish the orders, whatever the order may be. But if they feel that, hey, this is not good order, no, we should not follow it, then they have the right to say, no, we don't agree to that. This was big. This is basically spitting in the face of the president. The other thing they passed was the Tenure of Office Act. This basically meant that President Johnson could not fire the cabinet members without Senate approval. Because you have to remember, everyone loved Lincoln. People loved Lincoln so much. And now that he died, was assassinated, people were like, oh, Lincoln was amazing. Lincoln was like basically like a saint. He put these people in his cabinet for a reason. He trusted these guys. He believed these guys would get the job done. So we need to keep these guys in that office while you're there, because you're only there because he got killed. So we don't want you firing any of his people. This big. Okay. Next thing that happens, the Second Reconstruction Act basically enabled black men to be able to vote. Again, Johnson vetoed it, and Congress overrode him. The next one was the Third Reconstruction Act, which basically mentions stuff like the voting rules in the South and allows military to use force to remove state and local officials who are trying to stop the Reconstruction. So let's say provisions, food, water, clothing, things like that, is coming to the Reconstruction area where the Friedman Bureau and some of that. If they found out that a government official, a senator, House of Representative member, a mayor, a governor, whomever, let's say they try to steal the stuff or try to stop it from getting to the Friedman Bureau, now the military could use force to basically get rid of that person. Or if someone's seen as like, oh, you're being a racist, you still believe in slavery, you know, we're going to get you out of the office. Now the military can come in and forcibly remove that person, detain them, beat them up, whatever they had to do to get them out of office. That was big. That was really, really big. Again, Johnson vetoed it, and again, Congress overrode him. Okay, so just about everything Johnson vetoed, Congress was able to override him. And this makes Johnson very, very upset. So upset. Okay. So here's my next question to you. Do you think a president who takes over for another president who was killed or who died in office, things like that, do you think that president who took over should be allowed to put the people they want in their administration? They're the president now. Yeah, they took over a president who was killed or who died, but now this is their presidency, you know. So should they be allowed to pick their own people? Yeah, because they didn't pick the Secretary of Energy, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of War. They didn't pick those people. The president who died or who was killed, they picked them. So now that the new president in, should they be allowed to change up the staff? Why or why not? You tell me. What do you think? All right. So pause the video, write your response, because we're moving on in 3, 2, 1. All right. So August 5th, 1867, President Johnson asked Secretary of War Edwin Stanton to resign. Now, Edwin Stanton is the guy who was at um, the bedside of Lincoln when he was killed and said he belongs to the ages now. That was him. Okay, him and Lincoln, they had a little kind of a little rocky relationship, but there was still respect and things like that between the both of them. And Johnson tells him, I need you to resign. I need you to quit. And Stanton goes, no, why would I quit for? No, I'm not. So about a week later, um, Johnson knows he can't fire him. He knows he can't fire him because, again, the Office of Tenure Act that was passed by Congress. He's like, I can't fire him, so what can I do? What can I do to get rid of him? Suspend him. There's nothing in that bill that was created that says I can't suspend a person. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to suspend Edwin Stanton and replace him with General Grant. So that's what he does. He puts General Grant in the position. Thing is, for like 4 months or so, Grant is in the position of the Secretary of War, and he's like, you know what? This is I, this is not for me. This Stanton, this is his job, and you put me in this position, which I feel like I'm stepping on his shoes, and I don't want to do that. So basically, um, Grant is not happy there, but at the same time, um, he informs Congress that Stanton's suspended. Um, what I mean, I'm talking about Johnson. He tells Congress, "Oh yeah," and I forgot about this. To tell you guys this a while ago. But Stanton, he is suspended. He is not the Secretary of War right now. It's Grant. So yeah, I didn't fire him. He's suspended. About a month later, Grant basically tells Johnson, "You know what? Again, I don't like stepping on people's toes, and I feel that's what I'm doing. I really am. So I quit. I'm sorry." And he basically gives Stanton the job back. Basically, and this is Grant who's doing that. Grant's like, dude, I'm sorry if I was stepping on your toes. I didn't like this whole situation. No hurt feelings. Here's your job back. And Grant dips out, and Stanton comes back. This really upsets Johnson. Andrew Johnson's really, really upset at this point. All right, so here's my question to you, my next one. With Johnson vetoing every single bill or law, whatever you want to call it, that Congress comes up with, do you think that he's doing this because everything that's these bills are for to help African Americans? Do you think he's a racist? Do you think he just hates Congress? You know that they were such a Lincoln lovers, things like that, that they and you know here he comes replacing Lincoln. They're like, oh well, you're no Lincoln. You know, do you think it was that, or do you think that he was jealous of the love and attention Lincoln got? So he's like, you know what, all these people, they love and respect him and this and that. I'm the president now. I deserve this and that. You guys should be listening to me. Do you think he was like that? Or do you think he was just trying to stop Reconstruction any way he could? What do you think? Or do you think there was something else, another factor? Okay? Let me know. What do you think? Why do you believe he was vetoing every single bill and law that came through? Why? What do you think? All right, so pause the video, write your responses because we're moving on in three, two, one. So, February 21st, Johnson fires Stanton. He's like, you know what? I don't care what Congress says. I should be able to have whoever I want in my cabinet. I want Stanton gone. And he fires him. 3 days later, the House of Representatives basically had come together. They talked about it and they decided to file charges of impeachment on Johnson for violating the Tenure of Office Act. Now, what does impeachment mean? Impeachment is basically charges on the president or whomever they're putting the charges on. Excuse me. It doesn't mean when a president or a judge or whoever is impeached, it doesn't mean that they get kicked out of their job. Excuse me. It doesn't mean that. It's just the charges. What happens then is once the charges are filed, then it goes to the Senate. It's the Senate then who basically reviews the case and says, yes, you violated this. The impeachment charges are going to stick, and you then are charged and fully charged and cannot um, be part of the government anymore, and you're kicked out. Okay, that's how it goes. Okay, Just because someone's impeached doesn't mean that they lose their job. And that's what happens. So May 16th, the Senate um, decides to vote on it, and the impeachment basically fails by one vote. One vote. One person decided, or one vote, just say not one person, but one vote changed the whole thing. So if they would have just swing the other way, he would have been the very first president to officially have been impeached, charged, and found guilty. But he didn't. So basically, then Johnson's like, well, see, I'm good. And he's like, well, when the next election comes, I'm going to do this and this and that, la la la. Problem was, he was such a bad president that his own political party was like, yeah, we don't want you to run for president. We don't want you running under our name. Yeah, you sucked. Yeah, we don't like you anymore. So if you want to form your own political party, go for it, but you're not going to have any of our followers. And we doubt the other political party is going to join you because they don't like you either because you used to be one of us. So, yeah. So that's the end of President Johnson. Now, here's my question to you. Do you believe that President Johnson deserved to be impeached? Again, looking at that Office of Tenure Act and asking you again, should a president be allowed to? What do you think? Should he have been impeached? Was it a legitimate reason to um, put the charges on him and things like that? What do you think? So go ahead, write your response. The writing prompts on the bottom. I believe President Johnson shouldn't have been impeached because, and explain. Okay. So pause the video because we're moving on in three, two, one. All right. So now we come to the exit ticket question. The first one asks you, says President Johnson is viewed by some historians as a forgotten president. Do you think he deserves that? Because when most people say Johnson, they tend to think of Lyndon Baines Johnson, the president who took over for Kennedy. Your mind usually does not go to Johnson. In fact, some people forget that Johnson was the first president impeached. People tend to think it was Nixon, but it wasn't. It was Johnson. Um, do you think he deserves that? He should be kind of forgotten, not remembered. What do you think? Okay. The second question says, do you think Congress abused their powers with Johnson? Again, um, making, taking off his legs as the commander in chief, you know, um, doing that one, the Tenure of Office Act, you know, he can't put his own people in cabinet positions. Um, do you think they overrode their authority with that? Why or why not? Okay, so write your responses to whichever question you feel you can answer better. Okay, once you're done, you were done with this lesson. So hopefully you learned something new. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Okay, um, so you guys, you take care, you be safe, and I'll see you guys later. All right.